Hi everybody, welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. So I know I say this all the time, but I'm so curious what else there is to find out that I had never heard before. Being a member of the church my entire life, there's just all these new things that I'm discovering as I'm doing this YouTube channel, researching full time. And before I started my channel, I thought I knew a lot, and I did, but there's just all these things that keep coming up. We're looking at the Wilford Woodruff papers, and there's this right here from his journal, August 24th, 1867, where he talks about 12 temples. Specifically, something that Brigham Young had said. So I'm going to show you what I found and how that matches up with what I've had on my spreadsheets before, but also kind of contradicts what I have on my spreadsheets in the research that I've done. Really quick, before we get into it, two things. Number one, take a look at this word right here and let me know in the comments what you think this word is. To me, this looks like this is maybe an O and then a V, A, L, like oval. And then this looks like it's like, you know, the number 1 or the letter I in parentheses. And then this right here looks like a N or a lowercase b or something like that. Or maybe it's like, well, it's probably a letter. I was going to say maybe it's like a drawing, but let me know, because the Wilford Woodruff Papers project, they didn't know what that word said, and so they just put illegible. I tend to think that this says oval, but let me know what you think. Look at it closely. The second thing is I have my question for the day. I haven't been able to do this with each video. I'd like to, but sometimes I need to get a video out. Okay, so in a previous video, I had asked the question, would you rather have a house full of flies or a house full of roaches? Because in that video, we were talking about a prophecy of President George Albert Smith, where he said that millions would die like flies. And I like to do just these fun little mini game things here. And overwhelmingly, people chose flies over roaches, which still surprises me to this day. I would have chose roaches. People were saying that it's easier to kill flies. So I wanted to make this maybe a little bit harder, I think. Which would you rather have in your house? Like, imagine that you had the option between these two to be released into your house, and you had to be in that house for like a week. Okay, would you rather have millions of gnats? If you're not familiar with that term, it's like tiny, you know, it's like fruit flies and like tiny bugs that are like fruit flies. Would you rather have millions of those in your house, or would you rather have 200 mosquitoes? Let's see how everybody answers this one. Put it in the comments below. Okay, so let me read from this journal entry. Left American Fork and rode to Provo in 2 hours, 15 miles. Took breakfast at Bishop Miller's and met in the new meeting house for the purpose of dedicating it to God. It was built by the Presbyterian order. The people were some 12 years in building it. Also, I guess a third thing. Do you know which meeting house this is? Does it still exist? Is this where your ward meets? A meeting house that used to be a Presbyterian chapel? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, so at this dedication, you had Elder John Taylor, President Brigham Young, Elder Joseph Young, Elder Orson Pratt, and then of course Wilford Woodruff, and then Elders George A. Smith and George Q. Cannon. So I'm kind of surprised that all of them were there, but that's how it played out, and they all spoke. And then Wilford Woodruff records this about President Young's talk. First of all, if you're new to the channel or you're not familiar with the Wilford Woodruff Papers project, Wilford Woodruff had a system in his journals where he would draw these little pictures or icons, In this case, what we're about to read is preceded by the picture of crossed keys. And on the website, they have like a guide or a legend for these different symbols. So crossed keys for Wilford Woodruff, that stood for priesthood ordinances. Okay. Okay. President Young said his views of the Great Temple in Jackson County, Missouri, was that there would be 12 temples surrounding a square, and the square would be, and then there's the illegible, which I think says oval, but I mean a square is not oval, but maybe the temples would be in an oval or something. So again, President Young said his views of the Great Temple in Jackson County, Missouri was that there would be 12 temples surrounding a square, and the square would be oval for a great temple for the people, while the temples would be for the people, while the temples would be for giving endowments, and there would be doors out of every temple for the priesthood who labored in the temples to go into the tabernacle to teach the people and prepare them for endowments. So this is a little bit mysterious. So let me catch you up to speed. If this is a new concept to you, you can go to the church history catalog, or you can come to the Joe Smith papers, and you have the two original plans for the city of Zion in Jackson County, Missouri. Here's the first version, where you would have had 24 temples. Maybe in this instance, Brigham Young is talking about one of these blocks. So like if all you read was this, is you would think, oh, there's only supposed to be 12 temples, but Wilford Woodruff may have omitted the details of the talk, and he may have just been talking about one block, the one that has the Great Temple. So anyway, so you have these 24 temples. If you go to the backside, if it'll go there, okay, it's not letting me go to the backside of this document for some reason. It had a hard time loading earlier. Oh, here we go. If you go to the backside, it has the names of the 24 temples. They're in groups of 3, and I have a spreadsheet just to simplify this. Essentially, you'd have 12 temples that would be for the Aaronic priesthood, 12 temples that would be for the Melchizedek priesthood, and each set of 3 is given like a name or a title, and they seem to correspond with the different offices of the priesthood. So like these 3 would be deacons, teachers. The next one, I'm not sure, priests, and then bishops. I think that's how that goes. It makes the most sense. And then these ones over here, first presidency / apostles, 70s, patriarchs, elders. You can read these. I'm not going to read the names, but you can pause and read this if you'd like. So this whole thing that Brigham Young is talking about, where you'd have temples surrounding the square in possibly an oval shape, and then having doors for the priesthood, maybe it has kind of something to do with these different offices of the priesthood. And the whole part about a tabernacle, it seemed like he was saying that the temples would surround the Great Temple, the main temple. He didn't say anything about a tabernacle. So it's just, I don't know. I'm left kind of with more questions than I had before. But anyway, so this was the original plan. There was a revision made where it kind of like reoriented things, but this seems to be the final plan, the revised plat of the city of Zion, circa early August 1833. Okay, if we go to my spreadsheet called Quotes A through Z, what's currently rows 385 and 386, I have some quotes that have to do with these temples. And I was always confused about this one specifically from President Joseph Fielding Smith. This is in Doctrines of Salvation, Volume 3, page 511. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but let me read the part that I was confused about up until now. Okay, offering of the sons of Levi. What kind of offering will the sons of Levi make to fulfill the words of Malachi and John? Logically, such a sacrifice as they were authorized to make in the days of their former ministry when they were first called. Will such a sacrifice be offered in the temple? Evidently not in any temple as they are constructed for the work of salvation and exaltation today. It should be remembered that the great temple, which is yet to be built in the city of Zion, built in city Zion, will not be one edifice, but 12. Some of these temples will be for the lesser priesthood. So we had already come across this concept of 12 temples in New Jerusalem, and I had always thought that Joseph Fielding Smith was just like making a mistake, or maybe this was a typo. So maybe he was referring to what President Brigham Young had said that we're reading here in Wilford Woodruff's journal. Maybe there's more information somewhere. Now, I tend to doubt that this plan has changed, that there's not going to be 24. The reason why is because I have some other quotes. So we have this one from President Alvin R. Dyer, and this is a really interesting quote. This comes from BYU Studies Quarterly, Volume 10, Number 1, published in 1970, pages 1 through 3, and it's called Education, Moving Toward and Under the Law of Consecration. And he talks about the function of some of the temples, that some of them would be for education, because these would be like multi-purpose buildings, according to these more recent quotes. It would basically be like an administrative center. You may have a temple that is for ordinances, and then you'd have a temple that'd be for education, another temple that would be for meetings and stuff like that, kind of like the Kirtland Temple. In fact, the plan for the temple, that's on the Joseph Smith papers, and the plan for it looks like the Kirtland Temple. If they had built that first temple and then the other 23 or 24, as you're about to see, they would look like the Kirtland Temple. But right here, there's a question: will there be a formal education system under the law of consecration, and what might it be like? How would one envision or describe it? Answer: in this regard, I suppose many have heard me talk about the city of the New Jerusalem and its complex composed of 24 temples, buildings which will house various orders of the priesthood. This complex will no doubt be erected to serve administrative purposes in the governing of the earth during the period of the millennium. It is to be noted that the Plat plan that was submitted by Oliver Cowdery and Frederick G. Williams under the direction of the prophet Joseph Smith concerning the city of Zion, there were no separate school buildings. This means, and it is suggested too by other writings, that the schools will be in the temples. There will be no separate places. There will be no separate places of worship either. So the temple becomes the house of worship, the school, and the temple. Here it says, now there will be a vast broadcasting system. 3 of these temples have been noted to be the media through which the laws will go forth unto all quarters of the earth. What I would like to know is, where has that been noted? Because when it comes to the function and purpose of these temples, the only place that I know where you can find that is the back of this page for the first version of the city of Zion. Because the names of the temples, they kind of describe what they're supposed to be or what they're supposed to be used for. So, for example, the temples for the deacons, they're called House of the Lord for the Deacons in Zion Helps in Government. And when you read through these, I don't know that any of them really match what President Dyer was saying. What did he say again? 3 of the temples have been noted to be the media through which the laws will go forth in all quarters of the earth. So, sorry, I'm just thinking about this right here. There's this one, the house of the Lord for the elders of Zion, an ensign to the nations. This one is helps in government. So I don't know. I don't know if he's referring to the names of these temples or not. And then the last thing that I want to point out is instead of there just being 24 temples, there being 25. And this was another thing that I thought was a typo. Both of these quotes come from the David O. McKay diary excerpts on the University of Virginia's website for Mormon studies. You know, as I read one of these quotes, he said 25 temples, and I was like, oh, you meant 24. That's just like a typo or something like that. But then I found a second quote in the same place, and again, he says 25 temples. So, I don't know if my webcam is blocking this, but in this one it says, this plan includes a complex of 24 buildings in addition to the Temple of the New Jerusalem. So 24 plus 1 would be 25 temples. And then you have this one where, let's see, I guess I'll read this. Okay. I explained to the president, meaning President David O. McKay, that the prophet Joseph Smith in the early days sent a Plat plan of the city of Zion, New Jerusalem, which included the temple complex from Kirtland, Ohio to the Brethren in Jackson County, Missouri. This plan was prepared in the prophet's own hand, and that the original was in the church historian's office. Conjointly with Brother Fetzer, who's the architect, we reported to the president that our study in this direction was to undertake, if we could, to ascertain which of the temple buildings designated would presumably be located on that part of the temple land that the church owned. This we had arrived at and had determined which of these locations would be concentrated upon for the erection of a building for the purpose intended. He's referring to the Independence Visitor Center. The Independence Visitor Center was built to be one of these temples, but it's currently being used as a visitor center. The temple buildings, except the temple where the Lord will officially appear. Okay? The temple buildings except the one where the Lord will appear in his appearance to the New Jerusalem, as spoken of in the Revelations, are represented on the prophet's plan as houses, buildings, or temples of certain orders of the priesthood. There will be 25 buildings in all, occupying about 35 acres. I'm not going to read the rest of this actually, but toward the end, he talks about the fact that the Independence Visitor Center was built according to the dimensions that were revealed to Joseph Smith for the temples, which were 61 feet by 87 feet and 2 stories high. Okay, so all sorts of questions. I guess the way that I'm picturing it is this plan did not change. There's still supposed to be 24 temples. In this talk of Brigham Young in 1867 at the dedication of this meeting house, I'm assuming that he was just talking about one of these city blocks. Although, like I said, he said that the buildings would surround the square. So these temples are laid out as a grid. They're not surrounding anything. It's a grid. So it's possible that President Brigham Young received additional revelation. So maybe there was further revision to this plan. Maybe instead of being in a grid, maybe they're supposed to be in an oval or a circle or something else. Maybe the number was reduced to 12, but then I have the question about President David O. McKay and Alvin R. Dyer talking about 25 temples. So I tend to think that, yes, it's still going to be 25 temples. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I wish I had better answers, but this is what I've collected as of right now. So that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.